And that's our cue. This is going to be the fifth planet Keyforge, Jupiter Sakadura from Manlius, New York, with you with my co-host, the Big Z himself. Say hello.
Hey, happy Sunday. Here we are to go through what's gone down in week 2 of KFPL. Been a fun one. Lots of stuff. Not a lot of stuff to share. We got some stuff to share
We got
and
some.
set you guys up for week 3.
Yeah, so we got some things to talk about. First thing, let's take a look at the kind of like the standings and like where people are sitting. We'll do a quick run through them all, and then we'll come back and discuss each of the groups individually. So enjoy this little montage that we're about to drop you. All right, so it's time for some discussion on these things. Z, I know that we have some opinions here, right? Like, there's been some surprises this week as far as like people just being
There
juggernauts.
have been some surprises. There are a couple things that were pretty surprising. So,
All right, so let's
oh,
let me flip us over to the live view of the bracket here. This is our spreadsheet. Everybody that's in the league should be familiar with this by now, as we use
it's
it.
a public domain website sheet, though. So, anyone that has the link can get there. It's been posted in a couple of our channels.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, Group A, right?
Mm-hmm.
So our highlighted in blue with the white text. That we're not going to re-rank anyone until later because we don't even have a buckle score. So we're probably not going to be re-ranking round robin doesn't really work that way. But it is easy to identify who the number one seed is at any given point. So we will highlight that. And out of Group A, where you have Ewok, Future Beans, Grant Tice, J Power, Just Guy Play, and X-Ray Creator, all names that a lot of people know. Even Future Beans came on the scene late, kind of got a lot of press because of yelling Future Beans everywhere. The number one seed in Group A is Unarmed Goat.
The Gray Rider himself from Illinois, his teammate with SC Steel, and repping the Gray Riders like hardcore, man. And not only is he number one, he hasn't dropped a game yet in the league.
Yeah, he has 2 wins with a net score of 4. That means after 2 weeks of Keyforge at a very high level, he is 4-0 game-wise. There are a lot of great players that will attest that is hard to do. So congrats to week 2. You're number 1 seed on Armed Goat. Well done. Well done.
Yeah, so like here it's like you see basically he's won with all 3 of his decks too, so that's impressive. Like it's not like he's like people are challenging him, so his balance is looking good and stuff. So
yeah, very very nice to see that. That's
cool.
really cool.
All right, cool. So now we're gonna slide on down to Group B here. I'll do this as best as I can so you guys can see Group B. So here's Group B, and you see the highlighted person here is Shaka from the ABR. Congratulations on another guy that has not dropped a game yet and has used all 3 of his decks to perfection so far.
I think this is obvious a name people from the ABR know. It's a great player, great organizational part of the ABR. And one of the victories was over Flaming Hobo, Reap Out contestant. That was an easy match, but again, 4-0 so far on the season. Looking forward to see how that ends. He's got some tough matches coming up ahead of him. Hasn't played Nathan yet. Let's see, hasn't played Rodion yet. So yeah, the hurdles aren't clear. Hasn't played Aviator yet, his fellow ABR person.
Mm-hmm.
So Shaka has a pretty rough schedule still ahead.
Yeah, and Rodion is a sleeper in this group. He's a Brazilian that came on the scene last season and just was wrecking people. And he's loaded with some pretty nice decks, I would say. because they're mine. But they, I gave him the pretty good group there. But it's kind of good that I think he got the bye in week 2 because in week 1 he felt like that he needed more reps, like he wasn't comfortable with the decks yet. So I expect him to come back ready for week 3. So we'll see what happens in this group. But for now, Shaka is king and he is killing it. So congratulations. So we'll move to Group C. In Group C, we see that the Mad Lad Ugluk has won the Battle of the Mad Lads, and again has not dropped a game yet, and has used all three of his decks as well. So, and it's
I think Ugluk being 4-0 at this point is probably the least surprising
yes,
of our
it's the least. It is the
for
least.
what it's worth. But yes, congratulations, Ugluk. You are yet to drop a game, and we'll see how that goes going forward. You do have some tough stuff coming up. You're going to have to face off Dave at some point. Vast has some pretty solid decks online, and you already knocked out my teammate, so he's gone. So we're going to see what's happening.
So we do have an interesting fact that Praetor hasn't been banned yet, and that says the depth of his deck because Praetor is a ghost form Edai deck that's absolutely ridiculous. But Sad Panda and Jason both are pretty ridiculous as well. So it's just interesting to see that kind of spread. But he does have 3 of the best decks, and he is the least of the biggest surprises here. So at the bottom now, we have this win, loss, and strike chart that we have. So for the Western group, why don't you explain to us what this is for people that are maybe looking at this?
So that's just basically going to accumulate all of the data from the Western brackets, and it will dump it out to the stats page, so you can see that inside the Western bucket, Coda's 9-12 with 6 strikes. So Coda decks are pretty rough here. The AOA is 7-4 with 4 strikes. That's a pretty positive win rate for AOA in general. Worlds Collide sitting at 14-9 with 15 strikes. So that's a ton of strikes and a positive win rate. So we're looking at a lot of gas in Worlds Collide from the Western side. MM is 12-17 with 11 strikes. That is still a decent number of strikes, but a lot of the losses are coming in the MM slot. So being the newest set, I think we're seeing the trend here of people just weren't able to get enough stuff that is up to snuff to compete with the other contenders here.
Yeah, so that's interesting for the West, right? Like I bet you these change a bit as we go through. The metas are always shifting. So with all that said, let's move to the Central. This is Group D, where we see an undefeated Jay Philippeg at 2-0-4, but only having to play 2 of his decks because Noir looks like to be the perma ban here, right? So interesting.
Well, but that's one of the things that I am interested to see if that stuff starts to shift. Like, so if I'm the Jay Philippeg's opponent, I see Noir has been struck both times, right? So when I look at that, then I look at the other side of things. Neither of the other 2 decks have taken a loss. Does that, as a future opponent, make me kind of do some Keyforge calculus? Like, is this the right answer? It might actually be the right answer, and the other 2 decks are just that good, or it could be the wrong answer. So I am interested to see if the data starts to actually affect the player's choices of strikes. But yes, Jay Philippeg, 2-0-2-0 both decks, 4-0 for the season, and is sitting at the top here.
And in Portuguese, people have only lost 1 game in the league so far as Kidman is at a 2-0-3.
Yeah. I think Jupiter's going to move to Portugal or something. I don't know what's going on with the love affair with Portugal.
I would move to Portugal in a heartbeat. I'm Portuguese, dude. I speak Portuguese. Like, I would love to be in Portugal. I've been there. I went there for my honeymoon. It's amazing. But anyway, shout out to my Portuguese guys. Like, I'm so proud of the scene that's growing there, and Jay Philippeg has a lot to do with that. So it's good to see him up there. Since Kidman beat him into the KFPL, it's good to see that Kidman took the first loss over him. So at least Jay has been able to get back some of his Portuguese esteem. All right, so moving on to Group E, we have Lorenzo 99 stepping up to the plate, taking down both of his fellow
Atlanteans. So that's a rough start.
E2 Lorenzo.
We know they had a rough bucket. Sitting at 4-0 against your own team. Sad day.
Kiwi was left saying A2 Lorenzo A2. Just kidding.
A2.
But it doesn't surprise me though, because I know one thing about the Atlanteans is like this is something I've talked with Kiwi about in the past in some of the interviews we've done. But they all have like a specialty that they're really good at, and so maybe Triad is Lorenzo's thing. I don't know if that's for sure, but like I know that he's getting work done, and proving himself to be pretty good, because I think he's already beat very two high quality players. But at the same time, he's had familiarity with those two matchups too, because I'm sure they've practiced against each other. So it would be interesting to see what happens when he has to go up against like a Lapore or an Echo Ito and a Galina and a Mirton, like people who he's not as familiar with. So the test is still to come, I think, and we'll see what happens. And you can see that he has Lapore this week. That's going to be a test. So I'm curious to see that game to some degree. So
Sure. Yes. The pair.
the pair. The pair.
Moving down to F, we have another undefeated person who will stay undefeated this week. But anyway.
Yes, you got it.
We have Callum Slz. Again, same deck was banned both times. He won 2-0, 2-0 with both of the other decks against both his opponents so far. And he sits undefeated in the Group F bucket.
Yeah, like again, he is in that same house as Jay Philippeg, where everybody's banning Logan, and he's getting to play Alslang, which was one of my old decks. I traded it to Muffins, and he's using it. That deck is really good, and then the Hammer. So I don't know much about the Hammer, but
this is the one where I think the bans will start to shift. This keeps happening.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing that I like, the one we just saw before, like I'm pretty sure Odin gets struck every single time for this whole event.
Yeah.
Odin is just one of the best decks in the event. It's really hard to just not get like auto beat if the Control of the Weeks come out the right way and it's got enough time to make that happen.
Callum is saying,
but Callum's decks are much more balanced across the sets.
Yes.
So if this result even happens, like I'll actually use the bite. But anyway, this would be interesting to see if the strikes stay the same. Given that he is 2-0-2-0 with the other two decks.
Yeah. So with all that said, interesting moves, but good job, Callum, our very own Screech Babam commentator, who I know is missing not being able to commentate on some of these events, especially since he's in the group with all of his UK mates. So that's tough for him. But he has to listen to Baron Von Fabulous butcher the notes that he gives him for commentary. So that was yesterday. If you didn't see the Muffin stream, you should go check it out. It was actually entertaining. But so now we move to Group G. This is the last group in the Central region.
Central bucket.
And we see that, damn it, our runner-up from last year is coming back strong with a 2-0-3 net. So not quite fully undefeated, but still putting in his work.
Yeah, with the deck he actually dropped a game with, this is actually somewhat surprising to me. K Miller is a very good deck. It generates Amber super fast. But yeah, he did drop a game at some point. I don't know if it was either trade or see. I'd have to go back and look. But yeah, he is the top of the bracket. Lots of gameplay in this bracket coming up. But he gets to kind of sit back and rest.
All right, and so here we go. Let's do the recap, the Z recap here at the
All right, in the Central region, we're looking at Coda actually having a positive win rate compared to the Western. 18, 15, and 10 strikes, so a decent number of strikes. Positive win rate by a little bit. So basically it's swapped with Age of Ascension, though, because here, Age of Ascension is 9 and 11, not as many strikes, the negative win rate. So we're looking at basically the Call of Dark and the Age of Ascension level decks, kind of just reverse roles from Western to Central. And the biggest, I think, the most drastic difference is the Worlds Collide sets here. Worlds Collide, we have 18 and 19 with 12 strikes, so the strikes are in line pretty much with all three of these sets ratio-wise, except there's a ton of strikes in MM. But Worlds Collide is basically breaking even here, so that's showing a slight favoritism to Coda in general for this region. But the most telling thing is basically it's almost 50-50 split wins losses between sets all the way down. MM literally is 12 and 12, but a ton of strikes. So whatever reason, people are striking more MM ratio-wise than the West. So maybe a lot of the Europeans did go hard on MM, pulled some good stuff. At the very least, it's noteworthy that whatever they did pull, whatever are in these sets, they are striking them over the other decks.
Yeah.
For sure.
All right, so let's move to the Eastern Front. Eastern Front is only one group, so this is quick and easy. But we see
Yeah.
that right now the this group is really like spread out. Like this is the group of death. I think in our year, this thing is I think we're gonna see a lot of like people just beating other people, and then other people beating that person.
This is a
And
super competitive deck. You had a lot of people coming into this group that were in the top 16 last season for
four of
season
them,
one.
half of
4
them.
people were in the top 16. It is also important to note that not a single person in this group has not dropped a game. Everyone has at least one game lost,
hmm
even if they had won their match.
And even if they've
The
had a
only
bye.
reason that Alex is the declared number one seed is because he has a 1-0 match record
Yeah,
because he has a bye. So like
he has the
it
half
is
game
the
advantage.
half game advantage. So this is the highly contested bucket at the moment. I'm very interested to see what this group looks like after week 3, because there's literally anyone could shoot to basically the top by getting a 2-0 against the right person.
Yeah, after week 4 is where I think it's going to start to really have to like hammer out, and you'll be able to see the stretch race, right?
Yeah,
Like
like
it's
I
gonna be
mean,
great.
the saddest thing is that only 2 of these players get top 16. So like, whoever makes number one seed in this bucket is going to be super thankful that they're not battling any of the other people that would be contesting for second and third, because that's a playoff to get in. So that is going to be a really fun match to see. Just like I think Central Group E is going to be a really fun playoff match to see who gets in. Because there's going to be some pretty big names, I think, throwing down there. So I'm excited to see what's going on.
Sorry, I had to step away from
The
the computer, but go ahead and do the bottom as Harlan
Oh,
was
the stats
deciding.
at the bottom are looking at 3-5 with 3 strikes, with Call Archons actually taking a dive. The data numbers are so small here, it's not that significant. But yes,
Your hand.
losing record for Call of the Archons. Age of Ascension is 2-1 and 1 strike, so positive, but barely. Worlds Collide 6-4 with 4 strikes. MM's 3-4, 4 strikes. I think the most important thing across the board is none of the brackets individually have a positive win rate for MM. That saddens me because I love MM. It's my favorite set to play at the moment, but I think it's about to be changing to Dark Titans real soon. So we can flip. If you flip over to the actual stats tab, we can see the accumulated numbers for the win losses.
Yeah, 1 second. I had to chase Harlan down because he decided that he wanted to play with butter, like Play-Doh. So
Bizarro David is saying DTOP in chat. I 100% agree. There are already going to be combinations of logos play that top anything that lands, Lart even came close to achieve.
All right, so we're on the stats page now.
Can't nerf every card. Yeah, there we are, the stats. Looking at Call of the Archons overall, so this is a relation of all 3 divisions. We have Coda sitting at 30 and 32, slightly below with a 48% win rate, 19 strikes. So that's pretty much in line. Actually has the lowest strike rate, so it actually did get played quite a bit. Mm-hmm. Age of Ascension is 18-16 with 11 strikes, 53% win rate. I bet this data is starting to get to a number where it's being a little bit more significant. I am most interested to see what this looks like after the 7 rounds. Mm-hmm. But 53% win rate is starting to fall in line with. I hate Age of Ascension. I said from the very go that most of the decks are going to suck, but it will generate like a handful of some of the best decks in the world. Mm-hmm. These decks are competing against the best decks in the world, and these are some of the AoE decks that are some of the best, and we're seeing that. They're winning games 53%. Worlds Collide, we have 38 and 32 at 54%. This is kind of surprising to me, actually. I know Worlds Collide creates good decks, and that creates a lot of good decks, but it's hard to just figure out how good is good with Worlds Collide because they all look so similar.
Yeah.
But at 54%, we're starting to see it break away a little bit from the rest of this pack. And then the one that saddens me by far the most, MM got played a lot. That's 59 games. It less than Worlds Collide and pretty much even with Call of the Archons. So it's getting played a whole bunch. 45% wins. It does have the highest strike percentage. So I guess we have to kind of assume that the best MM decks just aren't getting played. and that a lot of people were bringing decks that were almost there but not quite good enough, is what the data suggests, because the strike rate being high, the win rate being low, would lead to that the decks that are there, that are good, are just not getting played, and that's leaving in Triad, it's all about beating that weakest deck. So I think people are identifying the deck that they can beat, trying to just pound on it twice.
Yeah, I mean, Dave is saying that Worlds Collide's highest effective win percentage is win plus ban, and Worlds Collide I've always said was like the most like the best top end set. Like, there's a lot of great stuff in Worlds Collide, but like I think identifying it, like you said, is a little bit tricky, and like finding the good stuff.
Mhm.
Unless you have like a Caruso, right? Like like that's pretty obvious it's gonna be pretty great, but
Yeah, I don't know. Has Dave played Caruso?
I don't think
He has. I don't know how that happened. You got to play it. And guess what? It won.
Yeah.
Good job.
Surprise. Well, maybe they thought they knew better. I don't know. But you see the house representation here too. The house representation showing that Brobnar is still the least liked house in all of Keyforge. Even more so than Sanctum and Mars, who are kind of in that pit hole as well, and then everybody else kind of gets to a reasonable amount, as like Saurians and
well, because you got to remember, like the Robnar's not
in
all the sets,
Yeah.
so that affects what I think is the most interesting is that Mars at 10% is only in 2 of the 4 sets, yet it beats Sanctum and Brobnar, and Sanctum is in 3 sets. Brobnar is in 3 sets. Mars is only in 2, so like I was always a big fan of Mars. I do like stuff that you can do in Mars. I do have a Jinka deck that I enjoy playing, but I've always liked the Battle Fleet. I've always liked stuff like Compod and Brainstem Antenna.
Yeah.
They have some like neat little tricky things you can do. I've always enjoyed that, but it's so hard to get a good draw because so many of the cards just don't play next to the other houses.
Yeah, the best of Mars is really good. But like it has like synergy problems, kind of like Brobnar. Like the best of Brobnar is really good, but it's getting the best of Brobnar. It's impossible.
Yeah, but back to my point, the fact that we're seeing that there's a higher percentage of Mars than Brobnar and Sanctum means that the 2 sets that Mars was printed in at least had more competitive value over the 3 sets that Sanctum and Brobnar were printed.
Well, you got to remember Saurian and Star Alliance have only been around for 2 sets as well, and they smoke like.
Well, that's true.
They smoke them pretty hard.
That's true. Well, that's obvious why though.
Yeah, because they're good.
When the set 3 Saurian and Star Alliance, they just came out so unbalanced. Like,
yeah,
I know the blasters don't bounce anymore, but when that was a thing, that was just beyond broken. And they fixed it. I think they just. That was another like LA type nerf. I think they could have ruled that easily either way.
But anyhow, like moving on, it's like it's not surprising to see Dis and logos at the top of the food chain.
For sure. I mean, almost all of my top decks have Dis or logos. Most of them have both. Most of them have both.
Yeah. And so that's not a surprise. And then it's like it's not a surprise either to see Untamed and Shadows where they are, because those are usually the other houses that go with the logos and the disc. So.
But I can almost guarantee you my best deck of the future will not have this in it.
Yeah, because it's going to be Dark Tidings logos, right? Like.
Yeah, it's going to have Dark Tidings logos and 2 houses that I don't care about.
Yeah. So.
I just don't care.
All right. So with that said, well, let's take a quick look and we'll walk you through this week's pairings if you're curious to what they are. So
yes, they might have seen them as we were flipping through, but that's
fine. We're gonna play the video. Yeah, here comes the video. And in the Group A matchups, we have Eox Jr. versus Grant Titus, Unarmed Goat versus J Power, X-Ray Creator versus Just a Guy Playing, and the bye goes to Future Beans. And in Group B, we see Frozen Tauntaun versus Corey Than, Rodion versus Aviator, and Shaka versus Xander for to win, and Flaming Hobo has the bye. And in Group C, we see Sad Cry Bear versus David Cordero, SCS Steel versus One Star Peeps, Ooglook versus Vap, and the bye goes to Dr. Sheep. In Group D, we have Jay Philippeg versus Aeroyak, Kidman XDX versus Zeramis, Kjorns versus Leo Lindsay, and George has the bye. And in Group E, we have Yuri Daly versus Easy Galilina, Kiwi versus Mirton VGC, Lapore versus Lorenzo 99, and Echo Ito has the bye. Group F is going to pit Armataka versus Menthol, Zyre versus Seb112, Tuck007 versus Sreds, and Callum has the bye. So Group G pits John Lang versus Raider, Canassa versus Vince T, Sodafly versus Vincenzo, and Dammit96 has the bye this week. And last but not least, in Group H, we have Gorbelly PH versus D-Champ, Pock versus Anxious Pirate, and Shepla versus Andy Ming with Fierza on bye. All right, and our feature matches for this week are going to be right here. SC Steel versus One Star Peeps. That will be match 1. Match 2 is going to be Jay Philippeg versus Aeroyak. Match 3 that we're going to feature this week is going to be John Lang versus BF Radar as we look to get drunk this week on Beer Forge, and Alex Sheplev versus Andy Ming. What do you think about those matchups, Z?
I am excited to see what goes down. So SC Steel was one of the first followers, patrons, anything for Archon's Corner. So she's been there with us for the beginning over there on that show. So I'm excited to see that match versus Andrew, One Star Peeps. I recently did an interview with him for the ABR League. Great guy. So yeah, I think that's just going to be some good, wholesome Keyforge there. What do you think about the next one? That's one of your boys.
I mean, it's Jay Philippeg. It's Portuguese power. It's gonna be. He's gonna have to have the extra pressure now of winning both his games again, so he can be like 3-0 with 6 points. Because
3-0 at a net 6 is, at that point, you're looking pretty good to place in the top 3. You're looking, obviously, you'd be the for sure front runner to be the number 1 seed and punch your ticket as that top 16 guarantee.
Yeah.
So yeah, that would be a good win to see. Let's see if that happens.
And and Kidman's breathing down his neck. He can't finish worse than Kidman. Like the pride factor for the Portuguese community is all in that group. So I hope they both come out.
We could potentially revisit this when it ends up being J Phil versus Kidman for sure. That would be an interesting duo.
I'm definitely down. But yeah. So and then the third match that we picked out, like, where do you think that's gonna head?
All right. So you keep talking up BF Raider. I don't really know him that well, other than the quals or how, making it into the event. So I am looking forward to getting to see some of that gameplay there. This is a Euro match, so most likely it won't be me, but I'm sure I'll get to watch it either way. Heck, if we plan it for Friday or Saturday or something, I might be able to do that.
Yeah, we'll see.
So yeah, I'm interested to see how that goes down. And I pretty much always enjoy watching the Atlanteans play. They play good Keyforge. I know they put in the time, the effort. Yeah, they're just great players.
Yep. So this is one I'm excited to watch as well, because I want to prove to you how well Radar plays, because I've seen him around the Crucible, and he's a nice guy. He plays really high level Keyforge. So yeah. He's one of my dark horses that nobody knows about that I think are going to be surprised, like the pleasant surprise, like the Rodion kind of thing from last season. So and then last but not least, one of your boys, Alex Sheplev versus Andy Ming, where Alec is trying to get that grip on that 2-0 start. I know he's been excited to get going, and he was kind of disappointed in a first week bye. So, how do you see this going? Because Andy Ming was a top 16 player from last season. I think he only dropped 1 game, I think, in the regular round, and went like 5-1 or whatever it was last season to get in. So
these are both great players. I've seen Andy's. I've seen a lot of his gameplay over the season 1. Alex is obviously on the team, so I've seen him a lot. So yeah, I'm excited to see. I know Alex didn't want that week 1 bye, so I know he's raring to go. I know he was a little bit sad he didn't get the 2-0. So I think he is going to definitely double down on the effort to make sure he gets the reps and whatnot this week. But yeah, I'm excited. Of course, I'm excited to see this one. I think this is the one I can. If we figure out the time, get the time zone thing right, that I probably could cast, because our evening is pretty much their midday or whatever.
Yeah, we'll figure it out. But these are the 4 that we're targeting for live casts for sure. Of course, we have plenty of other people that are doing work. We have Team Exalted, we have the Screech Bomb guys, we have Call of the Week, we have all kinds of different people like pitching in. Sheep and Archon's Corner that have been doing some streaming. So like there's all kinds of assets to it. And if you don't know, go to our Discord, go to the YouTube and the Twitch, and they have all the pins of all the people that have done anything for us so far with their stations. And make sure you check them out and stuff like that, as we are trying to let other people do some of the looks as well, because I can't do it like I did last season. I would probably die. So it's that's where we're at with all of this stuff and whatever. So I guess that's all we got for this. But
Wait, we got to do predictions before we head out.
Predictions. We're not heading
SC
out.
Steel versus 1-star Pete. Who are we predicting is going to win?
I got to go with Steel. She's playing my decks.
I am also going to go with Steel. I like the decks. 2, I think she's going to break in for what I think will be her first. Yeah, she had a bye last week. So she dropped her Sad Cry Bear on week 1. I think she puts herself on the board here, takes down Reapouts 1-star Peep. Who do you got for J Phil versus Lunch? Do I even need to ask? You're gonna pick J Phil back, right?
I won't say anything, but I have a heavy bias here. Yeah.
As much as I would like to go out and support the Beer Forge match here, I think J Philippic is also going to take this. So I do agree with the old planet and it being J Philippic's week to get another win. I don't know if he'll do the 2-0 here though, so I'm not sure about that side of things. All right, John Lang versus Beer Forge. I'll go for this time. I did pick Raider last time, and I was wrong. So I'm not going to do that again. I'm going with the tried and true, most practiced team probably. I'm going with John Lang. I think he's going to get the win versus Beer Forge Raider. And what about you?
I'm all about the Beer Forge. I'm gonna jump on that bandwagon with Radar.
All right, there's our first split.
I'm gonna give him that. I'm gonna give him that push, like that bump, because I know more about him than almost anybody else, I guess, other than his teammates, right? Yeah. So, but
flipping to the Eastern Group H, I already said who I thought would win. I think Alex is gonna take Andy Ming. What about you, Juke?
I'll go with Andy Ming on this one. I think he's.
We split again.
I think Andy Ming is on a mission at this point. I think the first week he kind of was working his way back in. He hadn't been around much. I haven't seen him playing much, and I think that loss kind of woke him up. So I think he's gonna come out punching. I think this is a very close match either way, but I'm gonna go with the contrarian pick just because it's more fun.
Oh, so we split on 2. That means we could still end up being tied. So we'll see which of our organizers wins the week here.
We can either be tied or somebody's gonna walk away with it, right? Like
someone could get fortitude.
Z is almost always right, so I expect him to win this, but we'll see.
I was wrong about Raider. I bought your Kool-Aid and went Raider last week, and your Kool-Aid was no good. So no way, no.
My Kool-Aid was fine. What are you talking about? He had a bye last week, didn't he?
no, we were gonna feature him, but we couldn't get a line.
Oh,
yeah, he was the one that fell through.
Yeah, that's fine. We'll see what happens.
And then he lost. So okay. Anyway, so what are we talking about? Our next segment, right?
Yeah, we're gonna go into the Crucible Tracker. Like we're gonna do our Tracker Talk segment. So, whoop, Tracker Talk, here we come. This is what we basically are just gonna take a walk through one of the matches in the tracker. And today, our tracker choice is the J Power versus X-Ray Creator game. And the reason that we chose this one is you can go into the tracker and look at both hands. They both are using the tracker, so that's a lot of value in itself that you can see. But you can see that like all the data here is here. But we're gonna move down basically to turn 7 because turn 7 is where Jason kind of made the game interesting. Because he is.
Yes. This was an actual interesting game that included a heart in one of the decks. This is a rare moment.
All right, so here we go. It's a turn 7, and you can see here that there's a Poltergeist, a Gateway to Dis, a Dust Imp, a Rise, a Witch of the Eye, Dew Fairy. The Speed Sigil's in play, that was like something with X-Ray. I don't know if like I play Speed Sigil when I know what Jason's deck can do, but then again, he does have a lot of value too. So it's it's a gamble, I think, but it was an interesting play. But here you see that he's up 4-2 on Jay, and we're moving into the turn. But this is the turn that Jay actually has Heart of the Forest in the hand. So that's important, an important thing to see. And you see in the archive he has Mimicry and Dandelion. But as we move forward, the interesting part of this game was that X-Ray continued to basically impose himself and basically start to make keys and get himself into a position. And Jay basically was able to, without playing Heart of the Forest, he was able to basically just keep up with this tempo like throughout the next couple of turns. And they basically go back and forth like a good Keyforge game always does, right? And one holding Heart of Forest, the other one holding Poltergeist. So we see basically they basically played this game at 5 cards each, right? Because they basically weren't looking at like for the value there, and so they're basically or the offset play, right? So they're both basically playing to the Heart of the Forest. So Heart of the Forest is still impacting the game, though it's not being played, which is pretty huge. And you can see here his archives are building and stuff as well. And then we just push down and you see that X-Ray gets to 7. X-Ray is allowed to forge, and then Jay answers with that forge. Oh, sorry.
But in that line a little bit up, you could see that knowledge is power was played for Amber in this case for I think 5 Amber. 4. Because normally in this uses knowledge is power to gain 5.
Oh, you must have archived
5 Amber.
Yeah, he archived.
So like with that scenario, because memory chip hits first, puts a card there. He's able to gain that 5 Amber immediately. And start to push, whereas deck normally doesn't do that. He's also able to land the graph to take 1. So it starts to swing pretty hard in Jay's favor right at that point by not playing the heart strategy, because he probably knows that as great as a deck yak is, it's not good when it's starting to be outraced by stuff that is not creature.
Right.
And so
here we see this is where the keys get made as he forges his first key and basically gets a little bit ahead, plays J Power gets the extra amber from the interdimensional graft as well. Not the kind of value you really want, but you got some value out of it. Then we get into the next turn. We see Jay forges his key now, leaving him with 3, and you see he plays another interdimensional graft just for amber. And the game is just kind of putting along, but you can see that this has been like 3 turns now where the Poltergeist and the Heart of the Forest are just kind of standing off in each other's hand, and they're playing 5-card Keyforge, which I think that tempo really favors Jason's deck in this because he has the closing power of the Chota with the Nature's Calls and stuff, and the Speed Sigil being in play probably comes back to haunt you at some point, right? Like it's pretty rough, but he does have the Witch of the Eye in play here, which is kind of
there was something interesting that happened on turn 9 because we're like talking about tracker talk on X-Ray's turn 9. He played the Dew Fairy first instead of the Witch of the Eye. That seems a little awkward to me. Unfortunately, we can't see the discard pile in tracker, so hey, Grant, maybe get on that. That would have been an interesting like Keyforge moment. That is there really nothing at all with a pip in your discard pile at this moment in time? That would have given you value here. So that is a curious play there.
Yeah. Did he even? It doesn't even. Did he reap with it? I don't think he even reaped with it, did he? It doesn't say he reaped.
Well, at this point, I think X-Ray probably missed that my opponent is now pushing, and I need to start pushing too. So maybe the idea was he wasn't planning on reaping a period at all still, because he's still waiting for Heart to.
Interesting. That's interesting to think about. So here we see that we go into Jason's turn, and Jason forges his first key, so he gets that, and then he plays his cards, gets the Entangler out and stuff, like usual plays that he makes. So we go back to X-Ray now, and we see now that the board is still wide open. There was the Entangler stops Untamed. So maybe the Entangler stopped the Untamed a turn before. Maybe is that why?
Oh, it did.
Yeah,
never mind.
Okay, that's why he did not reap. Okay, so this is what.
Oh no, he used.
Yeah, like
that one said dis. He used Entangler to stop dis from.
Okay. So it's the turn before this. So it would be this one. Seismic Entangler. Dis. Oh yeah.
Oh, he had. I'm sorry, he had to.
Untamed. Yeah, Dis and Untamed. So he basically turned off. So the Entangler was doing work there. That's why that happened. So that answers.
Yeah, the double Entangler in Jason's deck is very, very real. I saw some of their practice matches, and like it's kind of gross. And it's not like, especially because of off like most of the value of the speed sigil.
Mm-hmm.
It's an interesting card to be in such a good hard deck.
And having two is crazy. It's like having two Teslas.
Yeah.
Like it's really just oppressive. And so we're seeing that oppression here as he continues on, and he keeps Seismo entangling the Dis and Untamed. So he's almost like trapping him out.
Mm-hmm.
Like he's like got him in a good headlock here.
Well, and because of memory chip being online, like there's a scenario where you never have to call another house again.
Right, and like he just keeps stacking his things. So you see the Chota goes there, and now he's just digging for the last bit of amber that he needs. But
all of his pieces, yeah.
Yep,
and then that's how he closes it out.
Yep, and so like now he has him locked. He does get the Ember Imp down to slow down the chase, but it's not going to matter in the long run because Nature's Call is going to end the Ember Imp. Right?
Yep,
it's going to pop the Ember Imp. So you see again, this is a case where Heart of the Forest is impacting the game, but like X-Ray is waiting like he needs to with the Poltergeist, but the Heart of the Forest is still impacting his choices and the things he can do. And in the long run, Jason just basically continues to build advantage slowly with extra things, extra cards in the into the group. So we know that the full moon is going to hit soon, and it's just basically a thing. And here he goes to 6. 6 and 1 key. I know I'm talking fast, but we just want to get through this and show you, like, with the tracker, you can see how this game was played out. In Heart of the Forest, not being played was still impacting this game, like, throughout the whole game. So he makes his second key, and when he makes the second key, that's game over because now you go into the big full moon, like, bursty, untamed turn, and game is over. So that is the tracker talk for today. Anything you want to say about that match?
No, it's just interesting to see a deck. I mean, that's clearly a hard deck. That is how it functions. But biggest thing about having a good hard deck is that it does have to have a really good win condition in it, or else time becomes a loss condition, more of a win condition for you.
Yep, and even when you have answers like Poltergeist and stuff like that, the heart still takes its presence on the game. So that's why Heart of the Forest sucks.
Yes, I do agree with that. But in this deck, this is why this is the better decks in the world. It's because it does have a win condition that arrives at a very fast pace, and there are, like as we just saw, there are very real scenarios where it's going to achieve that win condition without the heart. Mm-hmm. So it's a dual threat deck. It's the big thing about having like combo decks. It doesn't even matter what the combo is, whether it's Jinka, Battlefleet, Heart, Stone decks. The deck's value more than doubles. Plan B is still a viable win strategy, and that's what we just saw. Like that's what we saw here. Yeah. Plan B is also a viable win strategy if you're me.
Yeah, so that's like one of my favorite Heart of the Forest decks. Period. Like I love that deck. It's like it plays so well, and he won in like what was it, like 13 minutes, right? Like it's not like he was.
Yeah, the whole game was 5 minutes to 8 minutes. It was not like a grindy, slow type of thing. It's a very fast thing. Turn wise was actually kind of like what was it? Turn 12, so a little bit above average. Average is still around 10 to 11.
Yeah. But still, that was about all we got. So that'll do it for the weekly show this week, I think. Z, unless you have something else you want to talk about.
No, thank everyone for joining us. For anyone listening on YouTube, thanks for clicking or whatever the heck is. Again, I'm like tech idiot as far as that stuff goes. Yeah. But yeah, we've been loving and enjoying doing that. Looking forward to week 3 and seeing how the games go.
Yeah, so if you're one of the features, we'll be reaching out to you and seeing what happens. Also, don't forget to check out the Screech Bomb guys, the Team Exalted, Muffins channel, the Archon's Corner and stuff like that. All those links are pinned in the appropriate Discord channel of the Twitch and YouTube there. If you're making content and we don't know about it and you want us to pin it, we'll pin it as well. All the Italian commentary is pinned there as well for both Team GG and the Keyforge Network, which are both carrying Italian commentary. So if you want to hear it in Italian and get that cool swag on, it's there as well. So other than that, I don't think I got anything else. See, if you don't have anything else, I guess we'll catch you guys on the flip side.
Good luck. Happy forging.
Killing machine.